Hello there, everybody. There's a very interesting discussion going on why certain artists or genres are constantly being disliked. One of the more interesting responses in the subject was by James Griffith. As this is actually a subject that I find very interesting, I decided to make some kind of a response or to do some rambling about the subject, and maybe with much focus on music and media, or should I say reviewers. People who reviews in magazines, in this case Swedish newspapers. As James said, right, there are certain artists who are always being overlooked in some form. Now ABBA is a very interesting example, as he brought up, because during the 70s, when ABBA was at their peak, there were no artists that in Swedish music that were so disliked by media and people who thought they know it all than ABBA. They were cheesy, they were plastic, they were sounded fake, and so on. At the time, it felt like that they were split. Some were really loving ABBA, and other half really disliked ABBA. And I also remember that the Swedish 70s was in much two genres, more or less. It was the more popular disco side, or it was the more proggy side. A lot of prog that were popular back then, and if it wasn't real prog, it was sort of like prog, so prog influences, and one side didn't like the other one. But and the interesting today is that ABBA today, by most, even though who were in favor of prog at the time, today everybody is seeing ABBA as something holy almost. So I guess ABBA won eventually. But it is very interesting because disco is something that has always been looked down on by almost by many, actually. No matter what era, during the 70s, during the 80s, during the 90s and Eurodisco era, that one was many really disliked, but if you take it in a bigger picture, it's also like that most genres that involve synthesizers have always been looked down on for one period or another. A lot of those synthesizer acts were seen as so-so. And a lot of these disco acts, as they have synthesizers and the music is computer made, that one is seen as lesser form of music because they feel like it is programmed more than people have learned how to play properly on acoustic instruments, which always has been something important. I'm not going to take for or against that. I'm, as everybody know, I am a huge fan of synthesizer music in many kind of forms, but I also love very much acoustic music. So I don't want to take side in that, but it's always been like that, unfortunately. I remember in the 90s when the 80s were at most in the cold. Uh, it was hard to be a vinyl collector because each and every time you read a review of an old artist's album, you wanted to see, wow, Human League has come with a brand new album. I want to see what it says like. And the only thing that the reviewers had to say in the text was two meanings. This sounds 80s, don't buy this crap. That could be more or less the entire review. And I remember I was very, very angry about that. I wanted some information about the albums that came out, and instead I got the reviewer smacking me in the face, saying, "Hey, grow up! It's the '90s. Listen to real music." And it's always interesting how you can label yourself as some kind of an expert. How journalists that reviews music, just because they have went some kind of a long education in university to have this work, feel like they also are some kind of an expert in musical opinions about what is great music, that they have more things to say about when it comes to what is good or bad music. That is very, very confusing and irritating, I think. But it has always been like that for some reason. That they want music to be some kind of an art form that hangs on the wall. And music is some kind of art form, but it's also music that are so wide and that have so many different tastes, and you can do so much fun with it. It's not just art that's going to hang on a wall to be something really fine. It's something you should enjoy in any way you like it, which many reviewers tend to forget. And there are also other examples of artists during the time that have been so much disliked or have been underrated. James mentioned some. I have other examples. Ace of Base, that still are being seen as almost some kind of a laughingstock. I don't feel ashamed to admit it. I like Ace of Base, at least the one that was in the 90s. Okay, it's not something that going to get a Polar Prize, but still, it is very catchy. It's great music. It's very calming and very cool to listen to. But in the 90s it was like it didn't matter that Ace of Base sold in millions of copies, 10, 15 millions all over the world. The so-called music experts in the media said that 10 million people does have wrong. Ace of Base is crap, and they might think it's crap. I don't deny that. If they want to say it, say it. But the fact still remains that there are a lot of people who didn't think that. But then, of course, music like Ace of Base or music in the dance genre always are depending on trends. What is popular then? and we are very few people who doesn't care about trends and like music still even after the trend is gone, and still can say that, hey, I still enjoy listening to Ace of Base, for example. There are other examples in Sweden. Toto, and I guess also in other parts of the world, Toto has always been a band that has been overlooked by many. I have here that I kept an article from 1995 when Toto had released their new album then, Tambo, and it has went straight into 5th place on the Swedish album chart. Their concert in the Swedish newspaper Aftonbladet had been having horrible reviews. As you can see here, this is an example of the paper that was holding in the hand of Steve Lukather the review that the Swedish journalist Per Bjurman gave Toto's concert in Sweden. He said, horrible. That was the main title of the review. It's very interesting because Toto is a band that knows that they isn't all that liked by the media, and they did an interview with Steve Lukather. They translated the article and actually showed it to Steve Lukather, and did this article, and the headline reads, "I love this guy." And to quote something from the article, they say, "I love this guy. He really must hate us. We laughed ourselves half to death when we got the translation, the review translated. The fact is, we had it in the studio during the work of the album. We were a really crap band, we said to each other every day and laughed. Damn, wonder if we shouldn't do a t-shirt with that on." It's great to see artists who have such a distance. And then the journalist here asked, "You're not at least provoked?" No, honestly, we've been people has been giving a bad reviews for 20 years. 90% of all the music reviewers hate us. With a band that they love to hate. It seems like a rule in the manual for music reviewers." And they say there's only one artist that gets more crap than them, and that was Michael Bolton. And when it comes to Toto, I read somewhere that the reason why they get many dislike Toto is because they are too polished. They are too polished, too nice music, too smooth music, not they don't improvise as much as many other rock bands, I remember in the 90s when I read this Per Bjurman, because Per Bjurman, the one who reviewed Toto here, was the journalist in this paper Aftonbladet who reviewed most of the stuff that was the most popular, and he was known to be a journalist who everybody listened to. According to them, he was a music expert, and I think that is bull. You can't be an expert in opinions. You can't educate yourself in opinions. I remember I was very, very furious about that. He wrote a review of Bloodhound Gang, of a concert that they had in Sweden, asking, I wonder which is the most idiots, the band or the fans who visited these concerts with the Bloodhound Gang. I'm no fan of Bloodhound Gang, but I think that was disrespectful indeed. However, as I have grown up, I also have learned not to care about those kind of stuff, and it's easy enough of me to say it because I review records myself on my blog, but I always try to do it with respect and review the music and the music on the record, and don't care about whether it sounds untrendy, whether it sounds 1984 or whatever what kind of artist it is. I review the music, and if it is an artist that I normally don't like, I don't review it. I mean, I wouldn't go out on my blog and review Metallica and a Metallica album just because I want to totally give it a crap review. I don't like Metallica, then I don't review Metallica because it's not my kind of music. That's kind of respect I have for people who have their musical opinion. So a little take on my views when it comes to music and the critics of artists. A very interesting subject, as I said, because I do some reviewing on my own, and I have been reading a lot of reviews from artists in the past when I was living at home still. I hope that you found my rambling somewhat interesting. So until next time, I hope that every one of you have a real nice time, and take care, and so long.